Hi, welcome to this video explanation for the image number 2 with the verse 6 from the book The Secret, a Treasure Hunt by Byron Preiss. Today we will go to the city of Charleston, South Carolina, and let's go to the verse now. So it begins with, of all the romance retold, men of tales and tunes, cruel and bold, seen here by eyes of old. So this here is a very clear reference to the epigraph at the beginning of Treasure Island, the famous book from Robert Louis Stevenson. And this is one of the most important novel to have been written about a treasure hunt in general. So, and here you can see that the reference is very clear. We have similar words and we see it clearly. And now, I think in those lines we also have a reference to a poem by Edgar Allan Poe. The poem is titled The El Dorado, and it's about a man who seeks the city of gold and he doesn't find it, and then a spirit appears to him and he tells him that he has to go much farther than he already is. So here the words old and bold, I think, are a reference to this poem. And now if we look at those lines, I think the author is telling us that here we are, our quest is about a treasure that is buried on an island and seen here by eyes of old. So this is a reference to Edgar Allan Poe, and you will see he lived in Charleston for 2 years. Well, not in Charleston, but on Sullivan Island, very close to Charleston. And Sullivan Island is where our quest will lead us, and I will explain this to you in the next few minutes. Now let's go back to the verse, and you see here all this part of the verse here is leading us on a wrong track. And if you are really interested in the Secret, a Treasure Hunt, you have probably seen the TV show with Josh Gates when he visits the city of Charleston and he tries to find the treasure in White Point Garden, and it doesn't lead anywhere. Well, those lines here are meant to do that, lead us on a wrong track, and I will explain why the author does that here. It's very important, so I will quickly review those lines. So the verse says, "Stand and listen to the birds, hear the cool, clear song of water, hearken to the words, freedom at the birth of a century." This could be a reference to Denmark Vesey, an African-American leader who lived in Charleston. Or May 1913, this was the date on a monument in White Point Garden. Edwin and Edwina named after him. This seems to be a reference to Edward Blyden, who visited the city of Charleston at one point and who had twins who were named Edwin and Edwina. But this could also be a reference to Edgar Allan Poe, and I will explain you why later. Or on the 8th, a scene where law defended. This seems to be a reference to an event that happened in White Point Garden where pirates were hanged some time in history. So all those lines you see seems to lead us to White Point Garden. And this is the wrong track, and now I will explain why it's important here. And now, before I continue with the verse, as you remember, I showed you earlier that the verse was beginning with a reference to a treasure hunting style book, Treasure Island, and in the verse we also have some references to Edgar Allan Poe. I will show you another one later in the video. And in the image also we have many references to Poe, to Edgar Allan Poe, that I will show you in the next few minutes. And there are references to a story in particular, a story that takes place here in Charleston, well, very close to Charleston, on Sullivan Island. And this story is titled The Gold Bug, and this is actually probably the most important story that Poe ever wrote, and it was the most widely read story that he wrote So it's important. And actually, he was stationed on Sullivan Island at Fort Moultrie in 1827 and 28, and that's why he chose to set the action of his story on this island. And I will explain to you why it's very important to have this story in mind to resolve the treasure hunt that we have here in Charleston. So here there are two things about the gold bug story that I want to tell you, and that we have to have in mind to find the solution to our quest here. So first, in the story, they have to climb on a tree and where there is a skull, and they have to pass the gold bug inside one of the orbit of the skull, and this is indicating them where they have to dig to find the treasure. And the first time they do that, they pass the gold bug through the left eye, and it's supposed to be the right one. So they first dig a very big hole, they don't find the treasure, and so they're about to quit and they're on their way back home when they realize their mistake, and they go back and then they pass the gold bug through the right eye, and that's where they find the treasure. And so this is interesting because I talked to you earlier about Josh Gate when he went to Charleston and they tried to dig to find the treasure in White Point Garden, where, well, this here I think is the other did this on purpose. I think he wanted us to first try to find the solution in White Point Garden, and then we finally realize our mistake and find the real solution. So this is interesting because it's similar to what happens in the book. And now the other interesting thing in this story is, in the beginning, the man tells his friend he found the gold bug and he found a paper with it, and then he passed the paper to his friend, and his friend is sitting close to the fireplace, and the heat of the fireplace actually reveals the invisible ink that is on the paper, and that's when he gets the indications to find where the treasure is. So this here is telling us what we have to do. What we have to do here is take another look at our image and find the hidden message that is in it. And that's where I'm gonna show you all the clues to understand the hidden message in our image. And the hidden message is actually very simple. It's Poe, Edgar Allan Poe. So here are all the references to Edgar Allan Poe in our image. So let's first look at the woman here, the butterfly woman. This is a reference to the poem Annabel Lee. It is one of his most famous poems, and it's the last complete work he did before dying. And this poem explores the theme of the death of a beautiful woman. So this fits very well here with this image. We can see the little smoky trail under her feet. So this kind of looks like a soul that is going up to the heaven, and it's a beautiful woman. So and there is also a famous quote from Edgar Allan Poe. He said, "The death of a beautiful woman is unquestionably the most poetical topic in the world." So this here, I think, is a pretty solid reference to Edgar Allan Poe. And now let's look. And also there is a local legend here in Charleston about Annabel Lee, and they say it might be in the city that Edgar Allan Poe actually found the inspiration for this famous poem. And now also I want to show you this. The name Poe is actually a derivation from the word peacock. And in the image here, we don't have a peacock, but the butterfly, there is a butterfly that is named the peacock butterfly, and it actually looks similar to the butterfly we have here, except for the colors, but we see the eyes like in his wings, so there could be something there. And another very popular short story by Edgar Allan Poe is the story Sphinx, and this story is about a moth. So here we could have another reference to the butterfly and Edgar Allan Poe. Now we also have this daisy flower here in the image, and in the poem Eleonora from Edgar Allan Poe, there is this sentence here, the white daisies shrank away. And when one by one the white daisies shrank away. So there could be a little reference here. And now this other reference is very interesting. Here you see there is this shape in the image that looks like Fort Sumter, that is very close to Charleston in the bay. And here you see that there are wires that are attaching the figure to the tree. So this kind of looks like a pendulum, and there is a famous short story by Edgar Allan Poe. It is named The Pit and Pendulum, and this is about someone who is being tortured during the Spanish Inquisition, and this there is this pendulum that comes closer and closer to the man who is attached on a bed, and then well, you get the picture here. So this figure here really looks like this pendulum, and I think this is another reference to Edgar Allan Poe once again. We also have this skull here in the image that kind of looks like an African mask also. And this here could be a reference to the skull that we have in the gold bug story. And now we also have the lion's face in the image here, and that is a reference to the immigration associated with this cask in Charleston, because the majority of the slaves who entered the United States during the era of slavery entered by the port of Charleston. But here I think the lion's face is also a reference to a novel from Edgar Allan Poe, Lionizing. And also, if you look on the face of the lion, there is this shape that we can see that looks like a Volkswagen Beetle. And you know the beetle is the gold bug in the story. The gold bug is a beetle. So here you see it with the eyes behind the wheels of the car here. So this is another reference to Edgar Allan Poe and another clue that we are on the right path. So where does all of this lead us to? Well, my theory here is that we have a story written by one of the most famous authors in the history of the United States, and the story is about a treasure hunt, and it happens here in Charleston on Sullivan Island, the gold bug. And I think that we have to have this story in mind to resolve our treasure hunt here. And like in the story, when he finds the hidden message on his paper, we have to find the hidden message here on our image, and the hidden message is Poe. And now there is no monument in Charleston to honor the memory of Poe, but he was stationed at Fort Moultrie on Sullivan Island, and guess what? Right next to Fort Moultrie on Sullivan Island, there is the Poe Avenue. And look here at the corner of Palmetto Street and the Poe Avenue, there is this stone marker with the word Poe on it, and I think that the treasure is buried right there. And now I will show you that the end of the verse makes sense with this spot. And so now if we go back to our verse, we have the line between two arms extended. Well, this stone post here with the name Poe on it is standing at the corner of Palmetto Street and Poe Avenue. So those two streets could be the two arms extended. And the next line, below the bar that binds, well, if we look here, we are standing at this spot, and if we just turn around, we see this bar on top of Fort Moultrie. It's only a couple meters from this stone post, and this is really a bar that binds, so it is a very good explanation for this line. And now, beside the long palm's shadow, well, if we look at the history of Fort Moultrie, that is just on the opposite side of the street from this stone post here, the first fort that was built at this place was named Fort Sullivan, and it was built of palmetto logs, and it inspired the flag and the nickname of South Carolina as the Palmetto State. So here I think the long palm's shadow is a reference to the Fort Moultrie. And now embedded in the sand, well, if we just look at the post here, we see that there is sand around it, so if the treasure is there, well, it is embedded in the sand. And now waits the fair remuneration. Well, this is another reference to Edgar Allan Poe, and this confirms my theory here. So if you read about him on Wikipedia, or you can Google Edgar Allan Poe and money, you will see that although he was one of the first Americans to live by writing alone, he made very little money from his work. As an example here, the poem The Raven, which is one of his most famous poems, well, he received only $9 for this, and the story The Gold Bug, for which he won the grand prize of a writing contest, well, he received only $100 for this, and this is probably the most he ever received for any of his work, and it was an instant success and very popular, but anyway, he didn't make a lot of money from this. So it was a tough time for others, and you see today that he is considered to be one of the greatest authors in the history of the United States. So waits the fair remuneration in the verse. This line here fits very well with the story of Edgar Allan Poe, and I think it is a reference to him. So this brings us to our last line in the verse, and it's White House close at hand. And here, if we look, we have this charming little White House very close to the place where I think the treasure is. So this again fits here. And another interesting fact about this place here, the little stone post with the name Poe on it, well, if we just turn around from this place and we look, we have this historic sign here, and this sign talks about the fact that this place on Sullivan Island was the point of entrance to the United States for most slaves who enter the country at the time of slavery. So this here fits with our immigrant group associated with the cask here in Charleston. You know, it's the immigrant group is reference are the Africans, and we have the lion face on the image and the little treble mask here. So this is good again. And now if we look at this figure here that has the exact same shape than Fort Sumter in the bay here near Charleston, well, the arms of the clock here are giving us a position, and what I did here on the satellite image, I traced a line between Fort Sumter, that is represented here, and the place where all the other clues were leading us. So this is White Point Garden in Charleston, the bigger end of the clock, and the smaller end I traced the line between Fort Sumter and Fort Moultrie, and the spot where I think the treasure is, the stone monument with the stone post with the name Poe on it. And well, this is the exact same shape than the arms of the clock here. So I think this is interesting, and I wanted to show you this. Now there is also this here I want to show you. If we look at the daisy flower here right next to the figure of Fort Sumter, well, if we look at the satellite view of the place and we put Fort Sumter in the exact same position as we have here on the image, well, if we do that, we find that the flower is growing on top of the spot where the treasure is. This is what I think is represented here, and I tried to show it to you here on the image. You see that if we really put the image in the exact same position with the foursomter oriented like it is here on the image, well, the flower here, it looks like it's growing right on top of the spot where the treasure is. So this could be another clue. Also on the skull here, there is a clear reference to the Charleston Peninsula that we can see very well represented, and there is also this figure that is a little bit hard to spot, but it kind of looks like this stone post here, so maybe it could be a clue that my theory is right. And now also, if we look at the image here, we kind of see the road that leads to Sullivan Island with the bridge here, so I think also this could be another clue for us. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and you see the verse was beginning with a reference to Treasure Island, and if my theory is correct, well, the treasure really is buried on an island, Sullivan Island here. So, well, if you find it, let me know. I would be pleased to know that my theory was correct, and have fun. Bye bye.